All right, here we go. This one's going to be a 9x25 Dillon test. And today we're going to be trying out some Underwood ammo. So for that one, it is the 124gr Nosler. Here's what that thing looks like. It does have your standard brass case and is rated at 1700 feet per second. So we'll see how close we come today. So we are going to be trying it out of our Glock 29. That one does have that 4.64-inch extended ported conversion barrel in it. And we'll be going through our gel. Those are 10% calibrated blocks. Do have our catch block behind that, so a total of 22 inches of gel, 4 layers of cotton tissue on the front, and like always, we'll set up our chronograph so you can hopefully pick up those impact velocities. So let's set up and see how this round does. All right, we're setting back to 15 feet. All right, let's see how we did on that one. All right, so it looks like our impact velocity on that one was 1582, so definitely not too bad. Rated was 17, but we are using that little bit shorter barrel. And on our Garmin, we have 1603.7, so definitely, like I said, not too bad. So that one was at the muzzle. All right, so there's that hit. Looks like I got a perfect shot on that block. You can see right down in there in a huge star pattern so far. You can see a little bit of that fabric that it drug in right there at the entrance, but really good to see. So let's check it out from the top. Oh yeah, definitely not too bad. So it looks like as soon as that thing came in, started to open up really nice. You can already see frag right there. It looks like a big chunk of copper that broke off, but pretty much all the way through you can see fragmentation. You can see it did start to settle down just a little bit towards the end, and we actually did make it into that second block, so it's actually kind of surprising, and a pretty good ways as well. So let's see what our measurement is from the top. Like always, we'll cut these open later to get our little bit more accurate cross-section measurements. But it looks like we're about 3 1/4, so definitely not too bad. That thing was moving 1600 feet per second, so really good to see. So let's check it out from the side. Oh yeah, so it looks like pretty much same thing from the side. So you can really see that fragmentation here. So it came in, pretty much exploded. You can see those petals kind of going all over the place. Definitely shedding a lot of that bullet. It looks like it did settle down pretty quickly though. It dumped its energy pretty quick, and then you can see a little bit more fragmentation towards the end of that track. It did start to settle down, and there it is in that second block. So let's see what kind of measurement we have here from the bottom. I'm sorry, from the side. We're gonna get the majority of this track first, and then we'll measure it with that petal that kind of sheared off. So it looks like we are just about 3 1/8 inches. And with that one that actually came off, we are just about 4 inches. So actually quite a bit of damage. So really good to see there. And then hopefully you guys can see that. Looks like it is facing upward. And at our leading edge, we are right at 5 1/4. So that's 16 1/4 inches of total penetration. So not too bad. So let's set it for that second shot and see how that one does. All right, we're setting back to 15 feet. All right, let's see how we did on that one. All right, so it looks like our impact velocity on that one was 1577. So once again, definitely not too bad, and actually very consistent. And with our Garmin, we have 1605.1. So once again, I think that was within 2 feet per second at the muzzle. So great to see there. All right, so there's the entry. Looks like I got another really good hit on that block. You can see right down in there, and another huge star pattern, man. It looks like there's already fragmentation. You can see, just check it out from the top. Oh yeah, pretty much same exact thing. So it looks like that one came in, pretty much exploded like the last one. Those tracks are actually very similar. The first one is coming towards us. I did have to flip the block. I just didn't want those paths to end up colliding, so that's why they are like that. But you can see that thing dumped a lot of energy that first half of the block, and it did start to settle down. There is some chunks right there towards the end, and it looks like it did dive down. We actually did make it into our table. I don't know if you guys can see that, but that bullet is resting right there in that table. So a little bit different results in that first one, but still pretty darn good for sure. The amount of energy it's dumping is pretty impressive. Looks like we definitely had some try to come out the side. So we'll get our measurement here from the top. And without that pedal there on the side, it looks like we're about just about 3.5 inches. So actually a little bit more than that first shot. And then with that pedal that's almost coming out, we're about 3 3/4. So very surprising, and you know, very good to see, like I said, with that one, because that thing was moving. And every time I shoot that Dillon is just ridiculously loud, even with Ear Pro. I'm thinking because it does have those ports there on the top. But anyways, so it looks like as soon as that thing came in, pretty much exploded like the last one. You can see fragmentation all over the place, chunks of lead, copper petals, everything pretty much coming off. And it looks like it carried the energy a pretty good ways, a little past 2/3, maybe 3/4, and then you can see that you know, big chunk of lead right there, and then boom, it started to dive down, and there it is in the table. So of course wife's not going to be happy with that one. This is a fairly new table, but that's okay. So let's see what kind of measurement we have here. We're going to measure with this pedal that came down here. Looks like we are about 3 inches, so a little bit less from the side than the top, but still very impressive. And it looks like we made it about 10.5 inches before it did end up coming out of the block. These are 11-inch blocks. Remove this stuff right here so we can kind of see, but you can see where that bullet tried to kind of embed itself right there into that table. But we will pull that so we can show everything, but definitely not too bad. So let's check these tracks one more time from the top. All right, so we did flip this block back over. So this one going away from us was that first shot, and then the one coming towards us is that second shot. So here is that first one. You can see it came in, pretty much exploded. Opened up really nicely though, getting a lot of frag. I know a lot of people don't like those fragging bullets, but they seem to be doing pretty darn good. And then you can see where it did start to settle down quite a bit, and then there it is in that second block. It actually made it a pretty good ways too. And here's that second shot, kind of a different story on penetration, but damage pretty much the same. Came in, exploded. This one fragged really good. Pretty much same size path going through, settling down a little bit towards the end. Like I said, this one did end up diving down and making it into our table, but we were able to recover it, which is a good thing. So really good so far. So let's pull these rounds and see what they look like. All right, check these things out. Looks like they both got some really awesome expansion, and they absolutely made it to their breaking point because they were moving pretty good. So the one on the right was that first shot, and one left was that second shot. So kind of a little bit different results too. But here's that first shot. You can see the thing opened up really nicely. It basically just folded in on itself. It looks like it peeled those petals right over the base, pretty much just folded in half. But pretty interesting. Definitely didn't expect that. You know, didn't expect the penetration for sure. Usually these things do blow up like the second shot and just kind of make a very shallow entrance and don't get too much. But that's definitely pretty good. Very surprising the way that one did act. So I'm going to pull just this big chunk for now, but that one did come apart in multiple pieces, of course, and it was lodged there in that table. But you can see pretty much same thing. This one is definitely a lot wider, but there is the base of that bullet. So I'm excited that we're actually able to catch it, because sometimes, you know, when they go through the table, we end up losing them. But definitely very surprising. That thing packed a punch for sure. So we'll check these out one time from the bottom. This one you can't really tell, but this one is the bottom right there. So the one on the right was that first shot, one left was that second shot. Definitely some pretty different results and very interesting results. But anyways, once again, that one was the 124 grain Underwood Nosler. Of course, they don't load this anymore. I just happened to get a couple boxes of it, but definitely some good stuff. And that was out of that Glock 29 first shot and second shot. Thanks for watching, guys. All right, so here's that cross section for that first shot. You can see we have some pretty massive splits going on. You can see right down in there quite a bit of fragmentation already. You know, just like out in the field, you could see how much that thing actually did frag. But same thing on this side, really big split. So I did remeasure these. They are peaking right at 4 inches. You know, of course, that's its widest spot, and they're averaging right around that 3 1/4. So definitely pretty impressive. So let's cut it open. All right, so here's after being cut. So this bottom is the right side and this top is the left. So you can see pretty much on impact, right around that 1/4, maybe even 1/8 inch mark, where it started to open up or explode. It was definitely doing a lot of damage, but you can see really big tears. This stuff is almost turned backwards right here. And then a big chunk of that bullet. I did pull out a couple frags already. Like always, we'll get our weight retention here at the end, but definitely pretty surprised on how this one reacted. I was actually pretty impressed on the velocity too, over 1,600 feet per second on that short barrel. Well, you can see, man, we have some really nasty splits going on. And you know, I did test this out of a 6-inch also, and we still didn't reach advertised velocity of 1,700 feet per second. So it is a little bit disappointing, but you know, it seems like out of that Glock 29 with that 4.64 inch barrel is pretty optimal for this round. But you can see pretty much same thing on this side. Came in, exploded. You can see those petals and shoots going all over the place. Right here, you can see where it started to veer a little bit. But same thing, man. Really impressive stuff. And like I mentioned before, that thing is extremely loud. Pretty much instant headache as soon as you you know, fire that thing, especially with those ports in that barrel. It's just crazy how loud it actually is. We'll do one more quick angle. You can see those splits, just massive damage. Tons of little tiny, you know, chunks of lead and copper all through there. That thing was fragging like crazy. And same on this side. Pretty crazy round, so I'm glad I actually stocked up on that stuff when they had it, because you know, it's definitely starting to be a favorite, especially because, you know, one of our favorites for the 357 SIG was that Nosler, so it's cool to have it beefed up, you know, at least another 100 feet per second. But anyways, there was that first shot. All right, and there's that cross section for that second shot. So this one's pretty much exactly the same as the last one. Really big splits. You can see all those petals kind of shearing off. This one did end up veering out, you know, and going through our table, but still very impressive on what it did. So I did remeasure these, and like I said, they're exactly the same. They're peaking right at that 4 to 4 1/4 inch mark and averaging right at 3 1/4. So definitely really good stuff there. So let's cut it open. All right, so here's after being cut. So this bottom is the right side and this top is the left. So pretty much same as that last one. Came in right that 1/4 inch mark, started to open up. You can see where those little tiny frags of lead, you know, because this thing did come apart pretty good. It, you know, we lost quite a bit of it too, just because it did end up coming out of the table. We do have a little bit of frag. It is the stuff here on the left, but I will pull the rest out here at the end. But definitely very impressive splits and cuts going through. That channel's definitely pretty nasty. And same here on the top. You can see it a little bit more distinct. Came in, opened up. You can see that nice wide path. And this one drug quite a bit of gel with it too. There's a nice deep canyon down in there. Does look like it did drag in a little bit of fabric. But very impressive stuff. And this one was moving right along that same, you know, just over 1,600 feet per second. So like I said, it is pretty impressive that we are actually getting those velocities out of that shorter barrel. And, you know, like I said before, that thing is just stupid loud. So definitely make sure to have your ear pro on. Maybe even double up, because that stuff is crazy. We'll do one more quick angle. You can really tell what's going on. Just how nasty those tracks are. Same on this side. Just tearing this stuff up. Would not want to be anywhere near the front end of that thing. But anyways, that one was that 124gr Nosler loaded by Underwood. Thanks again for watching, guys.